think that people have a very, very tender spot for this movie. They project, when everything was possible.
In the humid summer of 1986, at a crumbling resort in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a group of actors was about to create a masterpiece of romance, unaware that the production itself was being shadowed by a series of inexplicable accidents, career-ending injuries, and a lingering curse that would follow the cast long after the music stopped. The Dirty Dancing wasn't just a movie. It was a lightning strike of legendary proportions, birthing an iconic legacy that remains unresolved in the hearts of millions. But behind the soaring lifts and the mambo beats lay a darker reality. Were the stars running from their own shadows, or were they caught in a cosmic misalignment that would see this famous cast endure more tragedy than triumph? We peel back the sequins to reveal the secrets they've finally started to whisper about. The friction of the stars. Before he was a global heartthrob, Patrick Swayze was a gritty, classically trained dancer from Texas with a point to prove. He was a man of the golden age mold, possessing a rare blend of athletic machismo and delicate grace. Opposite him stood Jennifer Grey, the quintessential 1980s ingenue. She carried the weight of a Hollywood pedigree, yet she possessed a nervous, electric energy that made her seem perpetually on the verge of either a laugh or a breakdown. On screen, they were the ultimate personification of opposites attract. But behind the scenes, that attraction was a volatile chemical reaction that nearly blew the production apart. The incident that most fans never noticed lies in the raw, unedited screen test footage. It is a document of pure professional agony. Swayze had already worked with Grey on the film Red Dawn, and the experience had been so taxing that he reportedly had to be begged to join Dirty Dancing. During rehearsals, Grey's habit of looping, becoming stuck on an emotional beat, or giggling uncontrollably when she was nervous, pushed Swayze to a breaking point. In the famous scene where Johnny runs his hand down Baby's arm and she laughs, the frustration you see on Patrick's face is not acting. It was a genuine, chilling flash of anger from a professional who felt his partner was mocking the craft. While the lighting was designed to look like a warm, nostalgic summer of 1963, the actual feeling in the room was one of icy, professional distance. There was a watchful presence among the crew, a collective holding of breath every time the two leads shared a frame. You can almost feel the cold spots in their off-camera interactions, a sharp contrast to the humid, sweltering Virginia heat. They were two stars being forced into a celestial collision, and the friction was generating more heat than the lighting rigs ever could. The conclusion to this chapter of their lives is found in the tragic irony of their success. They created a masterpiece of intimacy while living in a state of profound professional loneliness. Swayze was desperate for a serious career, and Grey was desperate for approval. Their inability to find a common ground created a vacuum, and that vacuum was filled by the raw, desperate passion that audiences mistook for love. They were running from their own insecurities, and in doing so, they gave us the most iconic romance of the century, leaving behind a legacy of unfinished business that would haunt their professional relationship for decades. The Curse of the Mountain Lake. The fictional Kellerman's Resort was meant to be a sanctuary of mid-century joy, but the real-life location, Mountain Lake Lodge in Virginia, felt like a place where time and nature were engaged in a slow, agonizing struggle. This stone-built lodge, sitting 4,000 feet up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, provided the backdrop for some of the most romantic scenes in cinema history. However, beneath the surface of the picturesque water lay a geological mystery that would eventually mirror the flickering, fragile nature of fame itself. The incident that continues to haunt the legacy of the film is the inexplicable disappearance of the lake itself. During the filming of the iconic water lift, the cast and crew were already battling a chilling reality. It was October and the water temperature had plummeted to a bone-numbing 40 degrees. While audiences saw Baby and Johnny find their rhythm in the surf, the actors were actually fighting hypothermia, their skin turning a deathly shade of blue that had to be corrected with heavy makeup. But the true tragedy began years later. Since the film's release, Mountain Lake has vanished almost entirely on multiple occasions, leaving behind nothing but a reddish-brown pit of mud and rotting timber. The scene at the empty basin is one of profound, eerie desolation. There is a watchful presence in the silence of the dried-up bed, a place that once echoed with the music of the mambo and the splashes of young lovers. In 2008, when the water level hit its lowest point, the lake surrendered a grim secret: the skeletal remains of a man who had been missing since a fishing trip in 1921. This discovery added a layer of tragic irony to the location, as if the land was finally purging the ghosts it had held for nearly a century. There is a deep heartbreak in visiting this site today. Fans travel from around the globe to stand where Patrick Swayze once stood, only to find a grassy meadow where a vibrant lake should be. Just as the stars of the movie eventually faded, the very stage they danced upon proved to be temporary. The vanishing lake is a restless reminder that even the most legendary moments are subject to the cold, indifferent whims of nature, leaving us with only the unfinished business of our own nostalgia. Patrick Swayze's silent agony. To the millions of fans who sat in darkened theaters in 1987, Patrick Swayze was the ultimate specimen of physical perfection. He moved with a feline grace that suggested his body was an instrument of pure joy. As Johnny Castle, he was the king of the dance floor, a man who could leap, lift, and lead with effortless charisma. But the reality behind that golden age facade was a harrowing story of a man trapped in a biological prison of his own making. Patrick Swayze was not just a dancer. He was a warrior who had been fighting a war against his own joints since his youth. The incident that serves as the centerpiece of this physical struggle occurred during the filming of the famous log scene. This sequence, where Johnny and Baby practice their balance on a fallen tree over a rushing creek, is one of the most serene moments in the film. In reality, it was a nightmare of agonizing proportions. Swayze had already undergone multiple knee surgeries due to a football injury and the grueling demands of professional ballet. During the repeated takes on that slippery, uneven log, Swayze slipped and landed with his full weight directly on his reconstructed knee. The impact was catastrophic. Fluid began to build instantly, and the pain was so sharp it reportedly caused him to black out for a few seconds. Yet, in an act of sheer professional defiance, he refused to stop. The details of that day are chilling to consider. The air was filled with the restless energy of a production falling behind schedule, while Swayze sat in the tall grass during breaks, his leg packed in ice, his face a mask of pale, trembling exhaustion. There was a watchful presence of medical staff who knew that every jump and every mambo step was grinding bone against bone. The cold spots in this story are the moments between takes when the cameras weren't rolling, and the man who was supposed to be the world's greatest lover had to be literally carried to his trailer because he could no longer put weight on his feet. There is a tragic irony in the fact that the performance that made him a superstar was the very thing that accelerated his physical decline. He was a man who defined himself by his ability to move, yet he spent the best years of his life in a state of silent, grinding pain. This humanizing conclusion reveals the loneliness of the tough guy archetype. He could not show weakness because the entire weight of the production rested on his shoulders. He pushed through the agony to give the world a dream, leaving himself with the unfinished business of a body that would never truly recover. His legacy is one of beautiful motion, but for Patrick, that motion was a masterpiece painted in the colors of endurance and grit. Jennifer Grey's missing face. Jennifer Grey entered the summer of 1987 as the face of a generation. With her tumble of dark curls and a profile that felt refreshingly authentic, she broke the mold of the plastic, symmetrical Hollywood starlet. She was the daughter of Oscar winner Joel Grey, and she carried a natural, relatable charm that allowed every girl in the audience to see themselves in Baby Houseman. Her golden age status was cemented the moment she held that watermelon, yet her reign as the industry's favorite ingenue was destined to be tragically brief. The incident that redirected the course of her life happened in the early 1990s in a sterile plastic surgeon's office. Seeking a minor refinement, Grey underwent a rhinoplasty that went slightly too far. The results were technically perfect, but the consequence was a total erasure of her recognizable features. In an era before the internet could track every celebrity transformation in real time, the world simply woke up to find that the girl from Dirty Dancing had effectively vanished. She walked into the operating room as a superstar and walked out as a stranger that even her own friends struggled to recognize at premiere parties. There is a chilling stillness in the story of a woman standing before a mirror and seeing a reflection that no longer belongs to her history. The watchful presence of a judgmental public was felt in every audition room she entered thereafter, where casting directors stared at her with a mix of confusion and pity. The cold spots in her career were the roles she was told she no longer fit because she lacked the very quirkiness that had made her a household name. Jennifer once famously remarked that she went into the operating room as a celebrity and came out anonymous. It was a peculiar kind of loneliness, being the most famous missing person in Hollywood while standing in plain sight. Her legacy remains a cautionary tale about the fragile nature of fame and the unfinished business of a career that was cut short by a single, irreversible decision to change the face that the world had fallen in love with. Max Cantor's tragic departure. While the central romance of the film occupied the spotlight, the character of Robbie Gould provided the necessary friction that defined the social hierarchy of Kellerman's. Max Cantor played the part with a chilling, calculated arrogance. As a Harvard graduate and the son of legendary theatrical producer Arthur Cantor, Max was a young man of immense intellectual depth and artistic promise. He did not fit the typical mold of a Hollywood brat. He was a writer and a thinker who seemed to view his acting career as just one facet of a much larger journey. His presence on screen was a reminder of the harsh class distinctions of 1963, yet his personal story would eventually take a turn toward a much darker reality. The incident that cut his rising trajectory short occurred in the early 1990s in a cramped apartment in New York's Chelsea neighborhood. Cantor had become deeply immersed in the world of investigative journalism, specifically researching the grittier elements of the city's underground drug culture. Some believe his commitment to his craft led him too close to the flame. In 1991, at the age of 32, he was found dead of a drug overdose. The news sent a shockwave through the surviving cast members, as the man who had played the cold and untouchable Robbie Gould proved to be devastatingly vulnerable in the face of his own demons. The details surrounding his final days are a stark contrast to the vibrant, sunny atmosphere of the movie set. Friends described a restless energy in Cantor, a man who was constantly searching for a deeper truth in the shadows of the city. There was a watchful presence of tragedy in the way his life mirrored the very subject matter he was trying to document. The cold spots in this story are found in the silent hallways of that Chelsea apartment building, a place far removed from the choreographed joy of the mambo. The air in his world had become heavy with the weight of an addiction that masqueraded as research, a tragic irony for a man of such high intellect. Cantor's story is that of a brilliant mind that lost its way in the pursuit of understanding the human condition. He left behind a legacy of potential that was never fully realized, a collection of unfinished business in the form of unwritten articles and unplayed roles. While fans remember Robbie Gould as the boy who broke hearts at Kellerman's, the real Max Cantor was a soulful individual who struggled with the loneliness of his own ambitions. The Penny Paradox. Cynthia Rhodes. Cynthia Rhodes occupied a space in the 1980s that few could mirror. She was the quintessential professional dancer, a woman whose sheer technical precision was matched only by her striking classic beauty. Before she stepped into the role of Penny Johnson, she had already burned a hole through the screen in Stayin' Alive and Flashdance. She represented the golden age of the movie musical revival, a performer who didn't need camera tricks or quick cuts to prove her mastery. As Penny, the troubled lead dancer at Kellerman's, she provided the film with its most grounded and heartbreaking stakes. Yet, at the very peak of her trajectory, she made a choice that stunned the industry. The incident that defines her legacy is her total and voluntary disappearance from the Hollywood spotlight. Shortly after the massive success of Dirty Dancing, Rhodes married singer Richard Marx and made the conscious decision to walk away from a multi-million-dollar career. This was not a slow fade or a struggle for relevance. It was a clean break. She rejected script after script, choosing instead to focus entirely on her family life in the suburbs of Chicago. In an industry built on the desperate pursuit of the next big role, her exit felt like a quiet act of rebellion against the restless energy of fame. The details of this transition are found in the stillness of her post-fame life. While the world continued to dance to the soundtrack of her greatest hit, Rhodes was living a life of profound normalcy. There is a watchful presence in her story, the gaze of a public that couldn't understand why someone would abandon the glitter of Los Angeles for the silence of the Midwest. The cold spots in her narrative are the empty spaces in the films she should have starred in throughout the 1990s. The air around her legacy is filled with a tragic irony. She played a character who was fighting for a future, yet she found her own peace by letting that future go. Rhodes' life lies in the strength required to value privacy over applause. Many viewed her retirement as a loss, but for Rhodes it was the resolution of a life lived under a microscope. She remains a figure of mystery, a woman who avoided the loneliness of the aging starlet by simply changing the channel. Her story is one of a rare Hollywood tale where the protagonist got exactly what she wanted by leaving the stage while the audience was still screaming for an encore. The heavy burden of Jerry Orbach. Jerry Orbach entered the production of Dirty Dancing as a titan of the American stage. He was the original Billy Flynn in Chicago and the voice of Lumiere in Disney's Beauty and the Beast. He carried a golden age authority that made him the perfect choice for Dr. Jake Houseman, the protective and stern patriarch of the Houseman family. Orbach was a man of immense professional discipline, yet his time at Mountain Lake Lodge was colored by a persistent sense of unease. While he played the role of the moral compass, he often felt as though the production itself was navigating through a fog of inexplicable misfortune. The incident that many fans never noticed was the lingering air of gloom that Orbach described during the filming process. He was a seasoned veteran of the New York theater world, accustomed to the organized chaos of a show, but the atmosphere on this particular set felt restless and unpredictable. He spoke of the eerie quality of the Virginia woods and the isolation of the resort, which seemed to amplify the tensions between the cast and the crew. This sense of impending difficulty followed him long after the final cut. Even as he became a beloved fixture on Law and Order, he carried the weight of the film's difficult birth with him, often reflecting on the strange, heavy energy that seemed to haunt the halls of Kellerman's. The details of Orbach's experience are found in the watchful presence he maintained over the younger cast members. He saw the physical toll the filming took on Patrick Swayze and the emotional exhaustion of Jennifer Grey. There is a chilling resonance in the fact that he became a father figure both on and off the screen, perhaps to shield the stars from the cold spots of a production that felt cursed by the elements and a lack of funding. The air in his scenes is filled with a tragic irony. He was the doctor meant to heal others, while the production itself was suffering from a series of fractures that no medicine could fix. Orbach passed away in 2004, leaving behind a legacy of integrity and warmth. His role in Dirty Dancing remains an unfinished business for many fans who see his character as the soul of the movie. He was the anchor in a storm of restless energy, a man who understood that behind every beautiful dance is a hidden struggle that the audience is never supposed to see. The Great Mountain Fire. While the internal drama of the cast provided a simmering tension, the physical environment of the Virginia wilderness seemed determined to dismantle the production from the outside. The crew arrived at Mountain Lake with the Herculean task of turning a 1980s landscape into a pristine vision of 1963. They were building a dream on a shoestring budget, battling time and the elements to capture the fleeting essence of a summer that never truly was. As the cameras began to roll, the natural world responded with a series of acts of God that felt less like weather and more like a targeted eviction. The incident that nearly ended the film before the famous final dance was a massive, uncontrolled brush fire that tore through the surrounding Blue Ridge Mountains. The air, which was supposed to be filled with the sweet scent of pine and lake water, became thick with a choking gray haze of ash and smoke. The production was forced into a state of emergency as the orange glow of the flames crept closer to the lodge each night. This was followed by a series of freak localized thunderstorms that turned the dusty set into a treacherous swamp of red clay mud. Equipment was ruined, and the golden age glamour of the film was replaced by a gritty battle for survival. The exact details of those weeks are haunting to recount. There was a restless energy in the way the wind carried the smell of burning timber across the dance floor. The watchful presence of the local fire crews stood as a grim reminder that the fantasy they were filming was surrounded by a very real destruction. One could feel the chilling contrast between the upbeat mambo music playing on the speakers and the crackle of the encroaching inferno just beyond the ridge. Audiences see a sun-drenched paradise where the only worry is a forbidden romance. They do not see the soot on the skin of the actors or the fear in the eyes of the crew as they watched the horizon. There is a humanizing conclusion in the sheer grit of the production team. They worked through the smoke and the mud with a sense of unfinished business, determined to capture the light before it was extinguished by the ash. The ghostly vocals of Bill Medley. Music was the heartbeat of the production, but the creation of its most famous anthem was a process defined by a heavy, invisible weight. Bill Medley, the legendary baritone of the Righteous Brothers, had lived a life through the golden age of soul music. He was a man who understood the profound power of a vocal performance to capture the human experience. When he was approached to record the duet for the film, he initially resisted the offer. The project felt small and the title sounded tawdry to his seasoned ears. More importantly, he was navigating a period of deep personal reflection and grief that made the idea of a celebratory pop song feel strangely out of step with his soul. The incident that many fans never noticed in the recording was the underlying gravity Medley brought to the session. He finally agreed to the project only because his wife was pregnant and he wanted to stay close to home, but he entered the studio with a restless energy. The recording took place in a small, dimly lit booth where the air felt thick with a watchful presence of the past. Medley's voice carried a chilling resonance that went beyond the lyrics. The song became a global symbol of peak happiness while being performed by a man who was privately wrestling with the fragility of life. The session were far from the glitz of the Oscars stage where the song would eventually win. There were cold spots in the melody that Medley filled with his raw, gospel-tinged delivery. He provided a humanizing conclusion to the soundtrack, turning a simple movie theme into a timeless echo. His legacy is etched into those final notes, proving that the most enduring joy often comes from a place of quiet, hidden struggle. The final frame's unseen warning. The final dance sequence of Dirty Dancing is often cited as the greatest climax in cinematic history. It represents the golden age of the Hollywood ending, a moment where every conflict is resolved through the power of rhythm and a gravity-defying lift. Yet, the incident hidden within those last few seconds is a testament to the sheer physical and emotional exhaustion of the cast. If you look closely at the final frame, there is a flicker of a glitch in the movement. Patrick Swayze's knee was on the verge of total collapse, and Jennifer Grey's expression was a mixture of triumph and a terrifying realization that the magic was over. The tragedy of the scene is that while Johnny and Baby were beginning their journey, the actors were reaching a point of finality. The conclusion of the film is found in that parting glance. It was a moment of finished business for a cast that had survived fires, injuries, and personal friction. Their legacy is a masterpiece born of grit, leaving the audience with the heartbreak of a summer that had to end. The music may have faded, and the lake may have dried to dust, but the shadows of Kellerman's still dance in the periphery of our vision. It was a summer of love, yes, but it was also a summer of survival. For Patrick, Jennifer, and the rest, Dirty Dancing was a beautiful, unresolved haunting that they, and we, can never truly leave behind. The house lights at Kellerman's have long since dimmed, and the mountain fog has reclaimed the hollows of the Blue Ridge. What remains of Dirty Dancing is more than just a film. It is a beautifully preserved haunting of a summer that demanded everything from those who lived it. We see the grace, but we rarely feel the grinding bone. We hear the melody, but we forget the silence of the grief behind the microphone. The legendary status of this story was earned in the trenches of a production that felt the weight of a restless energy. From the chilling irony of a vanishing lake to the tragic isolation of a star who lost her face to a surgeon's knife, the cast finally reveals a truth that fans were never supposed to notice. Hollywood magic is often a mask for a very human struggle. As the credits roll on our journey through these unresolved mysteries, we are left with the image of that final, perfect lift. It was a moment of pure defiance against the odds. Perhaps that is why the legacy persists. Because in the end, we aren't just watching a dance. We are watching a group of people who, for one brief summer, caught lightning in a bottle and refused to let go, even as the sparks began to burn. If you found this deep dive into the shadows of Kellerman's resort compelling, like this video and subscribe. Join our community for more exclusive Hollywood lore, where we peel back the curtain on the legends you thought you knew and the mysteries that still linger in the rafters of the world's most iconic sets. Thank you for watching.